Jonathan, what an exciting next episode we have as part of a series of investing in oral health.
Next episode, well, we have Jeremy Krell, who is the founder and the brainchild behind Revere Partners, that in the last 4 years has become the preeminent venture capital firm supporting in so many different ways, not just with money, but with expertise and experts and collaborations and bringing in healthcare venture capital also at the same time. I'm looking so forward to this conversation.
I'm so excited. I got to tell you, these couple of episodes around impact investing and just early stage investing in oral health has been very near and dear to my heart. You know, I started my career as a trader on the trading floor, trading public securities like equities and bonds. And I think of venture capital as an asset class. Right? If I'm an investor, do I want to put my money in equity and bonds, or do I want to put my money in early stage companies? Very different profile of investing. But I think between Jeremy, between Daifeng, and all the other investors we're bringing in, we're starting to really show the value of venture capital in promoting innovation, in putting bets when others wouldn't.
That's right.
And not being afraid to not only be able to pick the winning teams, but also to sometimes put money behind technologies that might be too early to get on the market.
Taking that risk early. They are so necessary for the ecosystem. Maria, let's go. I'm excited to jump in on this.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Think Oral Health podcast. I am Maria Filipova, and as usual, I'm joined by our co-host, Dr. Jonathan Levine. And today, we're privileged to introduce you to another trailblazer and investor in oral health, Dr. Jeremy Krell. Before I welcome Jeremy officially, I want to give you a little bit more background on Jeremy. He is not only a general dentist, but he has over 18 years of proven track record of building, scaling, exiting startups, fundraising, and helping other startups grow. Dr. Krell, or Jeremy, as we fondly like to call him, is a managing partner of Revere Partners. This is the first independent venture capital focused on oral health. He's also the managing partner of Rice Health. This is the only inclusion-driven venture capital fund that's focused on oral health. So when I say trailblazer, we will really dig into on what it looks like to be an early investor in oral health. Jeremy previously built out the Barchester Bay Group, which is a portfolio consistent of over 40 ventures. He's also one of our favorite type of investors because he's an operator turned investor. He held operator roles at startups, including head of marketing and chief dental officer at Simplify, which was acquired, and then chief marketing officer at Verana Solutions. He also led clinical growth at Quip, as we all know, the successful unicorn in oral health. And he was also a strategic provider innovation and development at Oscar Health, which IPO'd in 2021, as we all know. Jeremy's also very much involved in advisory work, academic work, shaping the future minds of the future dentists that we see in healthcare. And with that, I am so happy to welcome Dr. Jeremy Krell to our podcast. Jeremy, hi, and welcome.
Hi, Maria. Hi, Jonathan. The pleasure's really all mine. It's an honor to be here. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Jeremy, I just got a little nervous because I didn't know when Maria would stop with that introduction, because the truth is you've accomplished so much in the last kind of 18 to 20 years in the industry, and you are a trailblazer. So I got question number one, if I could tee it up, and that really is, the old expression, what got you here won't get you there. So when you think about your past experiences, what has happened in your past experiences that has gotten you ready for all the things you're doing now with Revere, with investing, with supporting these young companies? What were your experiences that led you up to where you are today?
Yeah, and it's a great question. And if I could borrow from someone who I've had the opportunity to meet and is similarly a trailblazer in dentistry, Jim Glidewell, right? And he wrote a book called Constant Change. And I think that's it. If I had to put it in 2 words, you have to get really, really comfortable in work life, and that will drip right on over into home life, dealing with constant change. I'm not talking about having more kids, right? I'm talking about when your work and professional life has extremely high ups and extremely low lows, and it's so volatile like that, and it's so subject to, a variety of externalities in the market that you can't control, the COVIDs, the 2008 market crashes, right? Being able to deal with that, right? Being able to weather that constant rocking boat. A lot of people get seasickness, right? They don't like that feeling of instability. It's something that for whatever reason, I've always thrived off of, right? I really enjoy that when I wake up in the morning, it is a new set. It is a new day. It is truly a new day. Whatever happened yesterday, good or bad, it's kind of over. And it's a new set of challenges the next day, right? And so that ability to thrive off of constant change, I think, is what has helped me to be there. I think being able to learn from mistakes, and thank you, Maria, for the generous and kind introduction, which I think captures.
I wasn't even only halfway through it. I mean, what are you talking about?
that captures nicely and conveniently captures a lot of the success stories. Even those come with scrapes, and bruises. But behind each of those success stories, I can tell you that there were a number of failures, right? So I think the second piece to this is being able to learn from those mistakes and not let any one of them be enough to keep you down, right? But to, somehow take a look at it from a different perspective, process that, understand it, accept it, and then support it in your next journey. I think that's really, really important in this world, because there is no doubt that there are going to be those failures. There are going to be those things that just don't work out. And, hey, look, some of the best baseball players, for example, bat a third, right? I mean, a great batting average is a third, right? So you have to kind of keep that in context and in mind, about.
Is that a great batting average for a VC investor in oral health? A third?
Some VC investors, I'm not saying this is Revere's model, but some VC investors would have that.
Good. Yeah.
So a third,
right?
By most VC standards, the third is pretty darn good.
Yeah.
One market. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what makes a good investor in oral health, other than somebody who could weather the ups and downs and can manage the constant change?
Yeah, so I think the key part of that is that there's maybe one dose of kind of me and my background. I'll tell you what I think that is, but I really think the key part of that is in oral health, right? Because there's a whole set of things that may make a good VC investor. Maybe the first thing I'll say, applies to that. But I think the other things really are particular to this very quirky space that we've all come to know and love, right? Maybe the part of it, in me, and that applies to more generally VC is, like you said in my intro, I'm an operator. I love building things. Right. That really is my background and my passion. And I don't think I'd even be on the investor side of things if I didn't get to build my own thing here, right? That solves key problems. So although, yes, Revere's primary order of business is, diligencing and investing and supporting top, dental technologies, we've internally, the culture is really that of a startup, right? Where we're constantly building. So that's maybe the general answer, right? But to the oral health part, what makes a good oral health VC? I think it's understanding, number one, the data in this space, which was very hard to come by initially and was a real challenge when we started this thing about 4 years ago. It was held very close to the chest and, like many things in dentistry, quite fragmented, right? So we really had to do the research. We really had to pull that together. We spent about 18 months on that, right? It's just really, if we couldn't prove it to ourselves that this space performs, how could we possibly prove that to any other investor? Right. So I think that's one piece, is the data. Number two, in this space, it helps that I have a background in clinical dentistry as well as in, business. I come from the startup world. I have an MBA too. Right. So being able to be bilingual there, or even trilingual, if you kind of consider startup a different dialect of business, right? You have to be able to see it from both sides, because at the end of the day, we're building things for providers and for patients. So if you can't see it from their side, that super clinical lens, you're gonna have real trouble delivering, really good products. And on the other hand, if you can't see it from the startup founder side or from the, some of the traditional business frameworks, it's also really tough to pick good companies, right, that overall operate well. And I think the third and final piece, really is dentistry maybe this is the most important of all the pieces. Dentistry is so heavily built on relationships, right? So if I didn't spend the last, 10 to 15 years, because it took me a while to get smart enough to do this, showing up at every one of the events, right? Not just going to the events, but going out after the events, right? Shaking those hands, drinking those drinks, attending the networking, even if I'm seeing familiar faces, but then meeting some new faces, every single one of those for years and years and years until you know this critical mass of people and build this rapport and this trust. It really is a relationship-driven business through and through. And it would not have been possible had I not put in, the over 10 years of time to do that.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's unpack that a little bit, Maria, with Jeremy. So, we know venture capital, private equity, a lot of the capital and the capital partners, they're not operators. They might not have that wonderful insight of what it's like to grind and to persevere through the thick and thin and the ups and downs of starting a business and being an entrepreneur. You have that. And let's unpack a little bit. What do you think? What do you think that is? What is it being an operator that has given you that lens to determine where you want to put your dollars, who you're going to get behind, who you're going to bring in, next to that person? What's that competitive advantage being the operator?
Yeah, maybe I'll do a little myth busting to get into that, which is
that's our favorite part.
Yeah, we love myth busting.
Did Jonathan cue you in on this? This is our favorite part of the podcast. You are on point. Doug, go for it.
I think a lot of people think that VCs have this fancy, sturdy, stable, perfect matrix, right? That you plug a bunch of numbers in and out pops the other end with a great decision. What should the valuation be? How much should I invest? Should I even invest or not invest? That it's all programmed, right? And structured. Well, I have news for you. It's not, right? And I don't know a single VC. We work with some of the top on Sand Hill, all the way down to some of the smallest and most focused funds out there. And none of them that do a good job anyway, have something that looks like that. Because if you only look through that lens, you're seeing a very narrow tunnel vision version of what that company is or could be. And it's a very imperfect science because most startups are investing off of projections, right? Not, a little bit, but much less off of historicals, right? So that really doesn't work, right? There's a portion that is, doing your analytics. Don't get me wrong. We certainly do a lot of financial diligence and, we will crunch the numbers on these companies, but it's being able to see them and evaluate them on the softer side, the more subjective side as well. Who is on that team? What are their backgrounds? Are their backgrounds going to mesh well with what they're trying to do? Is this person a leader? Are they coachable? If we get into a difficult situation with this company, is this person going to be able to weather that storm and work with us through it? Right? Are they doing something good in the space? And do they really have the right motivation to be doing that good thing? Are they in it for the value chain, right? Do they ultimately see patients or providers paying off, right? Or are they just dollars hungry and money driven, right? Some of these softer sciences are a lot harder to ascertain if you're trying to look through rigid models that rely purely on numbers and you're just missing a lot of the picture. So I think me coming from that background and understanding that day-to-day up and down, that day-to-day grind, look, you're the person that, even though I have a bunch of maybe too many credentials, I've maybe spent too many years in school and certainly have a lot of student debt, lots of student debt to prove it, right? But, I do understand when you work in a company and you take a haircut on salary, a significant haircut on salary, you're not at mark to market, value. You're not being paid, but you're choosing to be there. You're choosing to take that salary haircut. You're choosing to, bring that more difficult financial situation home with you because you're working for something or doing something that you're passionate about, a cause that's bigger than you. Right? If you can't see that person and that lifestyle, that day-to-day work ethic for what it is, if you don't know what that looks like and what it takes in a person to do that, it's going to be much harder to choose, good companies. And it's just a more subjective science.
Yeah.
It reminds me that, you guys both have MBAs and there are things that,
don't hold that against us.
You learn in class, you learn in your case studies. but there's something else you learn by just doing it and by living that process of being the entrepreneur and hitting the headwinds and figuring it out. How do we survive long enough to thrive, right? And so, Jeremy, when you're talking to these different companies and, you're looking at that leader, that CEO, founder, the inventor, what are you looking at specifically at that person, from their ability to build a team, the leadership? And you started talking a little bit about it where, I think it's this concept of, big ego versus humility, leadership styles, of command and control maybe versus building trust and inspiring their people. Just to kind of tee it up, what do you specifically go after when you really kind of peel it back?
Yeah, and look, I think, it comes down to how we do the whole thing, and we get really one-on-one with that person, right? Everybody on our team is roll up your sleeves, and get in it, right? I don't, as the managing partner of this firm, I don't sit behind some desk, 18 layers away, right? We talk to, we meet, we, network with, we really try to personally form a relationship at all levels with the startup that we're investing in. We become family, right? So in order to do that, you got to get one-on-one with that person, and you really have to understand, what do they want out of this, right? Who are they? What do they really want here? And that can really help to plan the next phase of that business and its growth. For example, we often will find an inventor that is so passionate about the product, right, or the service that they've created. And while they have this title, founder, CEO, owner, something like that, it's really actually a misnomer. That if they had more resources in a team, instead of being founder and CEO, having all these different administrative, finance, governance, other business discipline purposes, they'd actually really like to just obsess over finessing that product, right? And so,
that's okay.
Yeah, and that's totally fine, right? And somebody who knows what they want, right? And even if they don't, but they need a little help realizing it and making sure that they get into that right position so that somebody else can be in the other position, that's a key piece of it, right? And then another key piece, because we are a venture capital firm, right, is we do want to see this, very steep, I say logarithmic, right, but very progressive growth for a company, right? That's what a lot of our model, kind of looks for. And, if at the end of the day, somebody wants to run something, there's nothing wrong with running a pizza shop, a dental practice, or any other brick and mortar type, for example, business. Run it at kind of an even level. Maybe it grows a little bit, and you pay salaries, and you're comfortable, and you're happy, and you shut it down. Maybe you sell it at the end of the day. There's nothing wrong with that type of business, but that also isn't an appropriate VC investment, right? So understanding what is it that person wants out of this, right? And are they willing to do what it takes to drive to that endpoint? Because it's not an easy one to reach. There's an enormous amount of personal sacrifice that goes on, right? Sometimes it takes, seeing the bigger picture. Sometimes it takes giving away or handing off your baby to someone else. It involves bringing in bigger decision makers and powers and egos, right? It involves a lot of different things over the transformation of making a product or service successful. And does that person want that? Do they want to see that for this? And are they willing to do it, right? So I think getting one-on-one with a person, looking them in the eye, and nothing can really beat that, and understanding, what it is they want out of the journey, I think is critical to the process.
Yep. Very good. Very good. Jeremy, I know you have a whole process on analyzing these companies that are coming to you as to disclose I'm an advisor for Revere, and I love working with the team. And as these young companies come in to Revere, maybe you could tell all of our listeners, how do you analyze it? How do you bring in the experts of the different categories? How do you look at that? How have you built the Revere Fund with that whole kind of group of advisors and your new infrastructure that is growing so nicely?
And I'd like to tap into this question. How do you support your portfolio companies as an operator, right? Not only as an investor. Writing the check, I would argue, is the easy part, right? So relatively speaking, how do you analyze and how do you support your portfolio companies?
Yeah, absolutely. And all this has really changed over the last, the course of the last 4 years. We've, really matured the process and grown the process as we've scaled. So just, for all listeners, there's kind of 4 departments of Revere. Biz Ops, that's where I sit. Not going to talk about that here. Fundraising and investor relations. We're constantly always fundraising and helping investors be successful. Also not going to mention that here. And then the 4th area is really our corporate services, right? Where we're serving the organized side of dentistry with kind of client services relationships, skipping that. Where we're going to hone in is on bucket number 3, which is our investment team, right? Our portfolio team. They really have 2 sides to them. The front of house, which are new deals, right? Assessing new deals that come in, diligencing them, choosing the best investments, the whole investment and negotiation process. And then the back of house, for the ones that we actually invest in, how do we support them? That's our portfolio success team, right? And so there's a number of ways that we do this. First, focusing on the new deals. One thing we've been really fortunate at Revere, and we have the whole industry to thank for this, is we really don't have to outbound source deals at all. Today, we have over 900 deals that have organically applied to Revere for funding, right? I think that helps to have...
Could you just pause here? 900 deals.
900 deals.
People who have applied, on the website, went in, submitted an application.
That's right. And that's really the first part of it. At the very beginning, we didn't have that fancy application that we do now, but now, yes, the application, they go in, they fill out this application. It's not overly cumbersome. That gets the process started. It kicks it into our CRM, right? And then our internal team takes the next step. So our internal team, we have a head of investor relations. Under him, an associate. Under them, we have analysts, right? Analysts that focus on the front half and analysts that focus on the back half. So, on the deal sourcing side, we go through the diligence side, we go through a 26-point process, but the high-level buckets are screening, primary diligence, secondary diligence, and then it goes into the investment conversation, right? So in primary diligence, what we're effectively doing after screening is we're taking out things that are clearly not a fit.
Yeah.
Primary diligence is our team is doing research mostly based off of what an analysis, mostly based off of what the team has given us, right? Some initial materials, their deck, maybe some basic financials, so on, right? If there's interest and we create this 3 to 10 page report and we build our data from that, right? If there's still interest, it goes to a secondary diligence process. Once it goes to a secondary diligence process, to Jonathan's question, we tack on a venture partner. We have 5, each with subject matter expertise. And then 2 to 3 advisors who also have subject matter expertise. They join our internal management team in the diligence of that startup, right? They each have a matrix effectively that they fill out as we go on to secondary diligence, which involves some sort of 30 to 100 page report. And now, goes deeper into their data room, requesting more materials from the company, as well as does research outside of the company now, right? After that is done and there's still interest, meaning our venture partner and their advisory team, they agree that this should move forward, and the internal management team agree that this should move forward. It then goes to our investment committee, which includes all of those people I just mentioned, plus members of our management team and C-level officers on the team. We'll hear a presentation of this company and we'll make a decision of it, whether or not it should move forward. So at the end of the day, between 12 and 24 people touch a company before there is a decision that's made, right, effectively on the investment. Right? So it's not a one person breaks it all, right, situation. We really want to give it a holistic look and understand what is the best fit. So that's really the diligence process.
For those startups in the audience, could you just give us very brief, give us one example or 2 of reasons you would walk away from a deal?
Yeah, I think
what is not a good fit for you guys?
Yeah, some key reasons we would walk away. We don't do a ton of investing if things are, I would say, so many years away from, market, very, very pre-market, right? Something is, biotech, but it's say 5 years away, right? And multiple rounds of regulatory and clinical trials and tens of millions of dollars before there's even the hopes of being in market. There are investors that do that. We don't do a ton of that. Right. So I would say that's one area. A very different area, if we have red flags around the people, right? And it's a subjective matter that we discussed before. It's a little bit of a sniff test. We have to rely on various people on our team to assess that directly with the people on the startup team. But if we have people concerns, kind of this early in the process, I can only but guarantee that if we go much further, those little, red flags turn into giant gaping holes, right? And we don't want to have that as we move forward in the process, right? So those would be two examples. As we cross over and we actually make the investment in the company, we have a set of side letter terms that really enable us to be a strategic investor, right? I think a lot of investors say they're strategic investors. They're not, right? We actually...
we don't like jargons on this show. What's side letter term?
Yeah, side letter. So alongside the shareholder agreement that we sign, whatever investment document, it's a safe, it's a note, it's and some sort of purchase agreement of stock, alongside the actual investment agreement that we sign, we have an additional set of terms that we request that we put in this separate letter and that we align with the startup, because each of the things that are in there help us help the startup. Right?
Like you help them get revenue from additional sales, you would want to be compensated for that. Is that
it's more along the lines of we want, either a board position or a board observer position, sometimes an advisor position with the company. We want a human being associated with the company that can act as a conduit, that can, independently serve that company, but that can also, keep them, really hooked up to, different resources at Revere. It's also, sometimes in there, we ask for pro rata rights, right? We're making a strategic investment. It's usually not the biggest investment in the entire round. We want to be able to carry that forward for the companies that are doing a really great job. A third term in there, for example, is that we look really, really closely at information type rights. We don't ask for anything to be done uniquely. We understand the startups want to standardize, right? Because they have a lot of investors. We're not trying to disrupt that process, but we do need various bits of information in order, for example, to even mark our own books and report to our own investors how our overall portfolio is doing, right? So we need to get certain reporting, basic reporting on a quarterly basis, usually, in order for us to even know how the company is doing, in order to step in and help in various ways.
Within reason,
yeah. So these are common things that we ask for. They're market standard. They're not meant to be intrusive. They're really meant for us to be able to help the company. Then we move into the portfolio, sort of success part of what we do. And we have a whole set of processes there to help that company be successful. Besides the things I've mentioned, like the side letter terms, we basically have structured, services around the key risks for the company. So for example, it's a key risk for the company if they don't raise enough money in this round or in another round. So we have Revere Plus, which is a network of, one-off pooled investments or special purpose vehicles, SPVs. We have a co-investor program with over 6 dozen other VC funds that are in it. So we have a program to help support the fundraising process. If it is a biotech, for example, and it has some regulatory or some clinical trial left, we've partnered with the top institutions to be able to make that possible, right? Everything from, for example, the McGuire Institute or Michigan Lewis Pittsburgh or Forsyth or, right, we'll look at, even our own portfolio synergies to help that company. So we've invested in a company, Nemedio. We've invested in a company, PharmaTrails, right? These are companies that can actually help the startup that we're investing in through those processes and reduce the risk, right? Because if they have to go another clinical trial or if they miss the regulatory hurdle that they're trying to hit, it's many more years to market and it's a much tougher climb, right? So we try to get in front of that. Then after that, it usually comes to scaling, right? I don't love to hear that a startup wants to hire a 25 plus person sales team. That burns up P&Ls, right? So we try to pair them with a corporate that is going to, a channel partnership that is going to help them to scale, right? And to do that efficiently. That's where our corporate services come in. And then the vast majority of companies in this space exit, not by IPO, but to a strategic in the space. So again, our corporate services come into play at that end stage of the life cycle and help companies to find an acquirer, right? So we're really active at all stages of the life cycle, trying to help them, especially at points that are key milestones for the company.
Amazing.
Jeremy, let's talk a little bit about evolution. Where you started, how many years ago is it now?
It's just 4.
It's just 4. Amazing. As you look at it today, and we think about healthcare as the overall industry, and we think back 4 years ago, how many venture capital funds there were in oral health. I think we all know that answer. Maybe as many as 0. And as you fast forward now, how other venture capital funds in healthcare looks at Revere, almost with the quote unquote, here's the experts in the field. Tell us a little bit about the evolution today, where you are today, and that relationship you have with the venture capital funds in all of healthcare.
Yeah, this has been super important. And in working with this wide variety, nearly 6 dozen, different VC funds and growing, it's been really great. We usually start out by educating them, right? We'll talk to them about how the sphere performs, different categories and the landscape within it, areas then that might uniquely match. We'll kind of do some additional legwork, find areas that might match their mandate, right? What kind of stage, what kind of size of check they invest in. We'll start to share deal flow and diligence with them, right? We're really hand-holding there, right? We're really doing a bunch of extra work to try to get, other key investors from different areas, sometimes healthcare, sometimes tech, sometimes, various forms of engineering. They all have different, sometimes they have a retail or D2C background, whatever it is that, their fund is all about, really bringing them in and showing them what a comparable in dental might look like and how that diversification could be important to their own portfolio, right? So we do a lot of extra work there behind the scenes to bring forward the rest of the venture capital community to understand this space. Their key reason for not investing, in our experience, is they just don't understand it, right? They're afraid. They have plenty of money. They're afraid to put the money in because they don't know how to help this company besides money, right? And that's a really scary thing to do for anybody, right? To put your money, just think of a dentist putting their money, and we should think about this because we do this a lot, right? We put plenty of money into real estate. We put plenty of money into stocks, bonds, CDs. We put our own money that we make in oral health into a whole bunch of other spaces that we honestly don't know much about, right? As individuals, and we can't help them at all. The real estate market crashes, that's it, right? The stock market goes, that's it, right? We rely on some CPA or some CFA to help us. Well, this is those firms, those VC funds relying on us, the industry experts, to help them in this investment, right? And so they have been gracious and generous when they invest, even if they're the lead investor, not us. We're getting major investor or their lead investor terms. There's even a few cases where we've gotten better terms than the lead investor, outsizing us by 10 million, right? So it's really a testament to our team and the work that we're doing to bring the rest of the VC community into some of these investments. They don't have to be in all of them. They don't even have to be in multiple of them. But hey, try one, right? That fits your mandate and understand it, right? And we can help you understand it.
That's right. And give you some extra dry powder for these companies. Jeremy, where do you see the future going? What are you most excited about in oral health and dentistry? Some of the investments you're making top of mind that really gets you and the team excited as you're casting out the next couple of years.
Yeah, there's so many fun areas evolving in dental technology that it's hard. I think one key challenge in dentistry is interoperability. This is something that has plagued us. I can't tell you how many times I hear from different types of software and fintech and related products and services. We just can't integrate with this or that. We just can't implement with this or that. It's a constant, sort of thorn in the shoe of everybody in this space. It's really hard to plug into things.
Right.
So I think interoperability is really coming along. I'm excited about what our investment Braid Health is doing. I'm excited about what our partners at Tooth Apps are doing. I'm excited about some of the regulation that's coming down. The Cures Act now evolving with Odin, and I've been on this committee at the ADA that's worked on setting a bunch of principles around, giving patients access to data and data portability and security. There's a lot coming in that sphere. Companies are going to have to be compliant. Companies are going to have to think about how they plug into other things. They have to, and then I think the services side of the industry, the practices, the DSOs, they have to think about who's the center of the technology universe. Because I think we all thought it was the practice management system. And I'm not so sure, right, that it is the practice management system. Is it the system instead where patients access their data, right? Because I think Epic would tell you, as powerful as Epic is, my chart's pretty powerful too, with 240 million Americans on it, right? I think that, in dentistry, and in medicine and healthcare, you'd hear from the Braid Health team that they're, an entire network layer. They're a whole PAC system. They can operate on and off the fringe, right? You're hearing that other things are actually the center, and that the practice management system, it might be a big, sort of, peg, right? But it's not necessarily the hub, right? It is just a big spoke. So I think interoperability is one that is really, I think, gonna push itself forward, in the next couple of years here, and is really a predecessor to so many more things that can be possible if that process is smoother. I think another area is really oral systemic health. I think we're also seeing it on the services side of the industry. There's now multiple examples of dental practices aligning themselves with medical practices or medical services, and leveraging the fact that as much as we moan and groan that patients don't come in as frequently as we want, this 2 times a year, every 6 months, that they actually come into the dentist a heck of a lot more than they come into the doctor on average, right? And they're leveraging that point of care opportunity to bring the two together, right? To bring the mouth and the body kind of back together, so to speak. They really were never apart, right? But to put them professionally back in the same, kind of arena. And on the technology side, we're seeing many different examples, right? We see it in the wearables and the salivary diagnostic space, for example, right? Companies like Lura Health, companies like Bristle, so many more companies, that are companies like Viome, right? So many companies that are doing these salivary diagnostics and understanding measures that, while they may be present in the saliva or in oral health, actually reflect on somebody's overall health, right? And how we have to work as a whole allied health network in order to treat that patient. So these are two of so many up and coming areas, but they just come top of mind.
And what do you think about the breakthrough in dentistry with the research around sleep, and the fact that the dentists are starting to have as a standard of care cone beam CBCTs as a standard, and being able to see upper airway restriction, and that movement of airway aware within the general dentist and the specialty dentistry offices? How do you see sleep evolving?
Yeah, I honestly, right, so big growth stories in dentistry. I think everybody points to implants first, right? If you look at them, they've kind of, they go up and then they kind of toe off. They're still a gigantic, right, market segment, huge product lines, big companies involved. The next wave behind that came ortho, right? A very large movement around clear aligners and moving teeth in different ways. I think, and at least myself included, many think that sleep is that next huge wave, right, that comes behind those other two. These are not just waves, right? Yeah. These are massive, right, systems that have come up in dentistry. And I think sleep is one of them, but it is tricky, right? It is a tricky situation, because you have questions around, whose scope of practice is it, which is sometimes a state by state issue in dentistry. You have huge issues around how do you train and educate, these providers, to get them to understand, because we don't get it in dental school, really, right? How do you really educate them on how to do it? There's other questions and issues around, there's so many discrete parts in the workflow, right? And workflow is such a precious thing in the dental practice, and disrupting it is one of the golden rules of innovating in dentistry, right? That we have
How do we integrate these technologies, and also the adoption of our profession, and learning these new concepts, these new ideas.
Right. And how do you come across medical, especially with billing, right? Because that's another piece, right, which a lot of the reimbursement maybe relies on the medical side, right. Whereas maybe we're talking about the treatment modalities relying on the dental side. That's true integration that it takes to get that done. So companies like Sleep Architects that have created a 360-degree platform that allow the practice to kind of outsource and solve these different pieces, right? That's key. Companies like Velmany, right, which is in the 2D, 3D AI space. And they are looking, I've seen them visualize the airway, right? The oropharynx, not only, to be able to stitch together different images, but to skin them, not only skin them, but segment and isolate them, not only isolate them, but to be able to measure them, right? You're able to effectively see, the volume and the shape of the airway, and watch it change, track it change over time with treatment. That is huge advancement in science and technology, can really benefit patients.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. And the visual image is so powerful. Well, Maria, this has been amazing. We got such a great line of sight of future and understanding what Revere is doing, disrupting this venture capital area. And thank God, in oral health. Near and dear to my heart, Jeremy, the things that you're talking about. Maria is also so great to have you on our podcast. Thank you so much for
coming here. And every time we speak, I learn about yet another platform or tentacle of Revere Partners that is meeting an unmet need in the market. So thank you for bringing us the latest. This is amazing. Very happy.
I really appreciate it. I appreciate both of you, our friendship, our partnership, your support. It means everything. So thank you so much for having me on the podcast here.
Thank you, Jerry.